But the other thing I hope everybody realizes is that we're missing a huge opportunity if we don't make this sport appealing to women and people of all ethnic and economic backgrounds, because it cannot be a sport for oligarchs and billionaires' children. We've got to welcome everybody in, especially young people. They got to feel like they belong here. This is about to be their sport. Most of my contemporaries are retiring. I meet so many young people that know more about now than we do. Let them in and let them have the controls. They'll do better than we do. Be aware of the fact that they know what to do. You let them drive the race cars, why don't you let them drive the business? Racers, when they see something that's better, they embrace it. They're learning machines. Everybody that's in motorsport is a learning machine. That's how they survived and prospered. Teach them something they don't know and you'll win and you'll have a place in the sport and you'll take us forward faster than we ever could. You have tools we didn't have. I see this at place everywhere I go. I see it. I remember when I had Jim Law and Ryan Sage visit me in 2003 to talk about Formula Drift. And I remember my hands were buzzing a little bit. I was like, oh my God, these guys are really onto something. And these two guys are going to change the world. They're going to go out and show us something we haven't seen before. And they're going to actually build culture and build community rather than just treating it like a show. They're going to make people feel like they belong to this. They understand that the audience owns them, not the other way around. They represent the dreams of their audience and they never break that bond. Some of the greater mistakes I've seen in motorsports have been when they become, I call it corporatitis, when the people with dockers show up and start running the business and they think that, well, that we can take them for granted, we can charge them more, da-da-da-da-da. They forget that the audience owns them. And that if you don't represent the audience, you don't go anywhere. You have to have them in the conversation all the time because you're the steward of the culture they want to belong to. In road racing and before ground effects and downforce, that's how you drove quickly, was you were basically drifting a car. That's what I loved when I first started racing. I was like Mr. Opposite Lock. I wanted to drive everywhere a little bit sideways. It felt great. And there's a joy in that. And they take it to another level. And they also take the premise of motorsports to a level that a traditional person wouldn't allow. Oh, that's judged. Well, you can't do that. Well, you can do whatever the hell you want as long as it works, you know? And I check in on the live streams, and the live streams are so compelling, even during the pandemic with nobody there. It's mesmerizing to watch, and I learn from them. I feel like I'm in the presence of you know, the guardians of the future when I'm with Ryan and Jim. They're also really good people. And I think all of us need to realize that people that will change the world are among us already. And the ones that aren't yet there, make sure you let them in, don't keep them out. They're usually going to be a lot younger than you are. And realize that, you know, I was 17 years old or 16 when I started this journey. And the reason I'm here doing this is people did that with me. They embraced me and took me in and realized that I belonged here. They wanted me to stay. And that's my biggest worry. I don't see enough young people in this sport. We now have a wave of them who've engaged in it during this pandemic. Put out the welcome sign and bring them in. You know, I have a saying, life works with commitment, it doesn't work without it. And the people I know in this sport, I've known many of them for 47 years because they were the ones that stuck to it. You know, my driving school instructor is the managing director at Chip Ganassi Racing. He's won at Le Mans in Indy 500s and IndyCar championships with Mike Hull. I met him on my first time I ever went to a race on a pit pass in 1973 when he was racing a Formula Ford. And he's a different person in what he does. He's not a different person in what he believes. And he manages change in the world pretty much the same way he did when I met him. And that's pretty consistent to most of my racing friends. There's a way they do it. And they just get better at it as they go along. They learn. Racers have a mindset, you know, now. Do it now. Do not wait. Do it now. Or if you can do it before now, do it. And you know, the other saying that I love, we use these in the No Fear ads we used to create, the clothing company, was victory travels at the speed of thought. To me, that describes every racer I know. if you think you've got something to lose, you've already lost. You know, whenever I've sat down in a race car, even if I didn't have a chance, I thought I could win. You know, it's a better place to come from because you'll do the things it takes. Some days you do win. You know, if you throw it out the door before you get to the end of the race, you've thrown out your opportunity. And guess what? Sometimes I did win because somebody else screwed up. Somebody else is always going to screw up. Drive your own race, focus forward, don't get talked out of it. As an industry, we don't come from fear. People that are saying these things are coming from fear. Come on, I need to slap you on both sides of the face. You know, you're a racer, you don't do that. Racing did not go down like other sports. Other sports just plummeted because the fan base is casual. They're not emotionally invested. Our heroes could die. Our heroes could be injured grievously. And we look at this and think, why is our fan base more committed? They're with us. They're committed to us. That's why they show up, and that's why this energy spool is it's sensational, really. And I think we're going to come popping out the starting gate like rockets. And I don't know if you're going to be able to do that with the other sports. It might take time to spool up all that mass and energy. So let's make tracks while we can. Well, first off, PRI means, to me, it's the center of our culture. When I'm at the PRI show, it's the one time we're all together, you know. All the tribes of motorsport are together. It's our political convention, if you will. You know, everybody comes from every state. You know, I hail from the great state of NHRA, you know. But there's something about it where our differences are minimized when we're together and have common purpose. It also is important to me because the business started in my hometown of Laguna Beach. And I would see my colleagues that worked at the PRI at the restaurant. The old office was 3/4 a mile from my house. So they'd be at my donut shop, my gas station, my restaurants I'd go to. This is the only group we ever did anything socially. We would go bowling and compete with a PRI team because they're our friends. Yeah, and we have a common interest. So what I see is that you're an agency or a force for good in our world. You're the agency, if you will, of progress for the entire community of racers. And I think the emerging mission of PRI is to help lead us to a better future, and a future where we're more united in a voice about what racing means. Racing is more than just the pure competition. Racing is the spirit of competition. That's actually the spirit of this country. Well, I find it so interesting is, first off, many of the people that are making the stuff are racers. They've competed, they've driven. And I just find so many businesses I go into, there's some of your members in PRI, and you know, I know them for racing. They started a company out of racing, and they have a similar path to what I do, is just in their own discipline. So, and the people around them are like them and like me in so many ways. And what they have in common ultimately is they don't want to do anything else. They don't want to be working in a job that's a job. Racing is not a job. Working in a racing business is not a job. It's a way of life. It's a passion-driven thing. I don't care, you know, what aspect, from the safety equipment companies to the performance equipment companies. I've never walked into one that felt like it was, you know, they were making cages for pets, you know, or beekeeping supplies. You know, they feel like something really exciting is happening in that business, because it is. You know, many of them are just making weapons of speed, you know, in that battle against time. And that's exciting. The concept that's always exciting. Many of them are making armor to protect you when you're in that battle. And there's a hard consequence in either direction for those things you make. So they are all in whatever they're making. I'm Paul Pfanner, and I am PRI, and I'm a racer.